speak, then we'll get back to Margaret. Trey?
So good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. And that was a great presentation, Collins. So I'm glad you recognize that when the court is dealing with matters to do with minors, they have to take into account the best interest of the child principle. And under the UNCRC, they say that one of the elements of the best interest of the child is considering the psychological elements that are going through the life of that child. When we look at a 16-year-old, and you were once 16 and you know how you felt at that time, and you can remember the peer pressure that was there in a class where maybe 90% of the people wrote letters to their lovelies, and you didn't have someone, there's some type of way you felt. So this is something we live with, and it's something that I think it takes more than just criminalizing. And since if you look at you can't change the psychology of life. So at that particular age, you feel this type of way and you feel this is right for you. So I think when they're considering, even they're amending those laws, they should take into account that psychological impact. And my suggestion would be that they should start educating these children on the consequences, the long-term consequences of their actions. At that time, you don't know that, you can get sick, you can get HIV, but you think you also know about contraceptives somehow, but you don't really know about those things. And you don't know like the long-term effects of what you're doing at that time. You just realized later. So I think the schools should take into account that they should educate these people more severely on the long-term effects of their actions. And if you just opt to still go tread on that path, you'll know what you're dealing with, because that education it's not really there. Because even in school, we're not really taught about, yes, you have life skills and you're taught 1, 2, it's bad, don't do it. If you do it, you'll get HIV, you might get pregnant, it will be bad for you. But they should be taught really well the psychological impact of it all, and what it does to you maybe in 10 years to come, 5 years to come. It's just more than that specific period of time. Thank you. I don't even if it came out as a question or a comment, but you can just give me your overview of that, what I've said.
All right, Trey, I agree with you. What you've said is very sound, but I think the best way to go around this is to amend our law. Because once something is anchored, in law, then there is no way we are going to derogate from it. Recently, there was a very hot debate. I think there was a bill that was being sponsored to make sex education compulsory in secondary schools. And you really saw, the hula baloo and the noise around it. I don't know, but we need to start moving away from being, quote unquote, a religious society, as it were, into just being a society that also appreciates that, this is what life is really about. Because, whenever we have conversation about things to do with abortion, about sex education in schools, about all these controversial issues, then the church is always up in arms, and Kenya is a very religious country, this one thing is against the Bible. But what is the long-term effect, and how does it really affect us as a people? Because much as we want to all go to heaven, we do not also want to end up locking every other person behind bars because we are a religious society. So I agree with you. And I think the best way to go around it, instead of just leaving it in the hands of fate and in the hands of well-wishers, I think we need to have it anchored in law so that we're able to move.
Thank you for your contribution, Trey. Now I'd like to read Margaret Otieno's contribution as well. think she was having network issues, but she says both are minors who need care and protection. I think they should set new precedents. I think she's agreeing with all what we have said today, that we need like an overhaul of the Sexual Offences Act, or we need new laws to mirror what is really happening in the society currently. And maybe it's already 8:56. So when you talk about consensual sex, and can a minor really, according to the law, we all know a minor can't give consent. I think that it becomes immaterial. As long as you're a minor, you can't give consent. So I don't know, what would be your advice? What would your advice be to parents and people who are going to see this on YouTube concerning this law and how they can protect themselves? We also had this issue that Trey has raised on contraceptives. I think Parliament, or I can't remember exactly, I think there was a law to introduce contraceptives to, I don't know if it's primary students or secondary students, because these things are happening. Even if you bury your heads, as you said, and we pretend we're a religious society, they will still have sex. They will still do those things, even behind our backs. So it is important that we become alive to what is happening. We accept the reality as it is. These teenagers, they're having sex. So how are we going to help them? Are we going to give them contraceptives? Should we make it mandatory? Such things. So I've talked about contraceptives and the issue of consent. Thank you. That is all.
All right. Maybe just in less than 2 minutes, to parent who is watching this, and not only a parent, just to any other person. And in my opening statements, they said that we come from families. So then this is also a conversation that is important to us, because we have cousins, we have nephews, we have younger brothers who are growing up, and you just really never know when the DPP will be knocking on your doors. I think for now, the law is as it is. And the only thing that we can then do is to try as much as we can to educate our young boys and girls, and especially our young boys, on the consequences of engaging in sex before they attain the age of majority. Whether it's consensual or not, the law does not distinguish at present what is consensual sex and what is not consensual sex. And also, as you rightly put it, it is an irrebuttable presumption that a child is not able to give consent. You can't argue with that. I mean, you can't go to court and say, but he consent. I mean, you can't really argue with that. So the best thing is just to talk to these people so that they try to avoid it. They won't die. There'll be opportunities to have, sex for as long as they want. And then on contraceptives, on this one, I don't know. I'm a little bit skeptical because of its side effects, right? So I think exposing our young girls to contraceptives, and especially when they're still not mature enough to really appreciate it, I think it will be dangerous. We might not be really able to live with its long-term consequences. So it's something that if we have to do it, and if we must do it, it really needs a lot of thinking around it to see if the benefits of it would be more than its long-term consequences.
Thank you so much. Tabitha, do you have something to say probably before we close? Yeah, Tabitha has raised her hand. Yes, Tabitha?
I have a comment. So my comment is, I think Sexual Offences Act wasn't enacted to protect minor and minor. It was enacted to protect minor from adult, yani sexual predators this way. So I think we should come up with another law that govern minors and minors. But then if we amend Sexual Offences Act, we are taking it as a one scenario, like where these two people are minors. But then there are so many circumstances where you find defilement, where a person is 19 years, that person is has knowledge of what he or she is doing. So I think Sexual Offences Act, it protects the child to the best interest of the boy child, yes, but it protects the child somehow. But when not looking at the law as it is, let us look at how it happens. You see, if you look or if you listen to some of this documentary, you will find that most violent cases, they are not. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Proceed.
Okay, so I was saying, if you listen to documentaries, you'll find this defilement cases, rape cases, they don't go to trial, they are dismissed. You see, yani, the law, it is not what it is written that is practiced. Out here, it's different. But I think Sexual Offences Act, it protects the child, because in instances where a child is defiled, the child, where there's no consent, yani, the child is defiled, the life of this child is it's ruined, you see. But then when you look at in the cases where it is a child and a child, no, that is something else. So the parliament should come up with other laws that govern a child and a child. But for Sexual Offences Act, I feel like it governs well in instances where it is a child and an adult, but it doesn't happen that way. That was my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you. Before Collins responds, maybe Tabitha, what happens on the ground? Maybe if you could tell us. I've heard